least somebody listens. Good morning, everybody. Daybreak Show rolls on. Time for me to get the business from the Mason County Sheriff Casey Salisbury. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Yes, I haven't seen Top Gun, okay? Deal with it.
Well, I didn't even make it to the back door this morning, and a car pulled up. Just happened to be my wife, and looked out the window and says, Top Gun. Really? He hasn't seen it?
Well, so I just cannot think of a time when I have seen Stephanie did the same thing, and she obviously has seen it. She's younger than I am, so when it came out is not an excuse. 1986, I was 7.
I was 15.
My kid wasn't even born yet, and he's a commercial pilot and knows every word to the movie. The other piece behind that, it's worth throwing in there. In this state, there are two absolutely outstanding sheriffs, Sheriff Bill Benedict up at Collin County and Sheriff Mark Kreider of Walla Walla County, that are both Top Gun pilots.
Wow.
Isn't that
Pretty neat.
You're under arrest, by the way, for not having seen that. There's a statute in the county.
That a whole thing? Yeah. Boy, I don't, I didn't
come over here to pay you a visit.
It'd be great to meet real life Top Gun pilots. Isn't that something? Yeah. I mean, I just wasn't sure why, some 25 years later or whatever it is, they feel the need to make a new one of these. That's even more than that, 35 years.
Sheriff Benedict actually signed a photograph of him coming off the deck of a ship in Vietnam, is it called the Thunder Chief or something like that, to my son when he was a little kid. Mm-hmm. He's carried that with him all the way through college, of a picture of Bill Benedict as a Top Gun pilot.
Wow. Cool. Well, I will put it on the list. How does that sound?
Man, Jeff, I'm telling you.
It's a long list.
We got some work to do.
It is a long list. It is a long list. We have seen some wicked rains. Somebody posted a photo of their weather thing. 21 inches of rain last month. Gosh.
I was reading 400% wetter than last winter so far.
Well, I hope the snowpack, though, that's going to be the important thing for summer, is that snowpack.
Yeah. The one thing about that is that it always kind of floods some of the main roads around here. And people that live kind of out Skoke Valley and stuff like that, they know that. They are familiar with it. But it's folks who come in for other events and things.
You may have seen on our Facebook page, we get called periodically to go out there, and people try to make that, the famous last words, watch me,
Yeah.
And the problem is with that is, it probably wasn't the best decision, but you're also, now our folks are having to go into the water, and you start putting people in swift water like that, you don't know what's in there, down there, if the road is actually gone underneath there, and now you're putting other people's lives in peril out there, and it can happen. I've been out there when it's been a flood and been in the water, and a number of years ago on the team when I dove for another agency, had to come out there, and that water's so high that when I told the team, I says, when you get in here, if you have to go in the water, understand that down underneath there's barbed wire fences. You don't realize the water's above those barbed.
Yeah.
If you're catching the flow and you're in a dive suit and you get hung up, you're over with.
Never thought of it.
It hasn't been that high since they fixed the bridge out there. But when you're diving in that, you don't know about the material floating underneath the water. I've dove in those conditions before, and it's very, very dangerous when you're in the water, because you don't know what's going to come underneath there and catch you. If a log's going to catch you underneath, you get hung up in some debris and you can't move around. Yeah, and this was not near that deep.
No.
But that car in there, the other thing I think about it, I'm just kind of a particular, but it seems neat to drive your car through a little bit of water, and that sounds all well and good until a few years later, and that silts in your wheel bearings and stuff. It's really hard on your car.
Oh, never thought about that either.
It's horrible to get that. Any mechanics that have to replace wheel bearings, you get water and silt in there, it just grinds. And the other thing is a lot of people aren't aware of, in some of the more modern cars, the air intake is down low in a lot of the cars for better intake down low the road. So you think you're just driving through 5 inches of water, and you're running the air intake right underneath the water. It goes right up into the engine. It's really damaging. But anyway, I just think about that when you drive through the water, about getting that silt in the wheel bearings and stuff underneath your car, and what's in there. It's tough on them.
So if you're on a main road and you know the road is there, and you're thinking that it can't be more than a couple inches, like you said, less than 5, and folks decide to drive over it, at what point, or what's the weight where a car would be pushed off?
It doesn't take much, and it's really not so much the weight as might be the flow of the water coming across the road. I was just out there. I went. You could see the road surface where I was at. You could clearly see it's a couple inches deep. But it doesn't take much to move any size vehicle if that water's underneath it, if that water's flowing fast enough across there to skip the vehicle around a little bit. So just just ask people when the signs are up and it says, don't drive through there, the road's closed. It's really helpful if you don't drive through there because the road's closed for a reason. It's important. So anyway, just a reminder. A lot of people make it and they get through there and they think it's neat, but until somebody gets stuck and they have their kids in their car and you have to go out and try to get them out, it's kind of a rough deal.
This last weekend was your last day of the month for your breakfast, and this was the one where you talked about the train over the I-5.
Yes, the State Patrol did it. I've seen it actually twice before. The Washington State Patrol, Captain Dan Hall and Detective Gunderson, Eric Gunderson, came out for us and did the presentation on the I-5 train wreck where the train came down. And they used a thing called a Faro scanner and some computer things that we have went to the commission to ask for the same investigative tools. And to see what they were able to do with that during the investigation, but the wreck itself was phenomenal to see how far a locomotive kind of left the tracks and how far it traveled off the tracks, and to see the equipment they needed to move that and how they did the investigation. And the whole underlying thing is amazing that there were not more people hurt in that incident than there was. They did a beautiful presentation for us Friday, and they did a great job in that whole scene.
We've got our Polar Plunge coming up this weekend.
Yes, you all ready for that?
I am ready for it.
All right.
Are you jumping?
Oh yeah. It's not like Top Gun where I haven't done it before. It's seen it before.
Give me a break.
That's good.
You gotta be, you're ready for these kind of important things in life you know about.
Break. Come on.
So, although I have to say this year, generally I've raised a lot of money for that. So if you would like to bring money down to Jeff and hand it over to help raise money for that, it goes to all the search and rescue teams, just like the folks that were going in the water out there. It goes to those teams to buy specialized equipment or new equipment if it gets damaged, both for fire and law. And that's what this is all about. And the Lions Club has been fantastic about putting that event together every year. You guys come out and announce for us. All that money goes back into equipment that's being used by emergency service people in our community for rescues and things. And it's really a nice event.
Showers are in the forecast, high of 47. That's actually pretty nice.
Yes.
Compared to some of the years that we've done this.
Yes, that one year, we canceled, was it last year before?
Last year we canceled because of all the snow.
One year they didn't cancel. I did it in Hoodsport. I think it was 17 degrees. I took a picture of the road sign standing next to it. They had the roads are frozen sign out there, and a bunch of us actually went in there. That was probably not the brightest thing.
I had one of memory pop up on my pictures of years gone by, and it was one of the frozen ones out at at Hoodsport.
They had that big cement heater out there that year. When they put it over the pavement, when they're for concrete on the highways. They had that thing going, so when you got out, you could at least get next to it.
It was like standing behind a jet.
It was really cold that year.
There was ice in the canal.
Yeah, there was. That was. And then last year when they called it, I thought, well, we've been colder than this before. It was just that last year that the docks were frozen. And we'd been somebody slip and fall on one of those cleats out there or something. It would have been really dangerous.
Well, plus if you're following the road out to Hoodsport, it's flat. If you're going out to Union, there's a lot of hills and stuff too.
I had to go down and pick up the sign for the Lions Club down at the bottom of the hill at Union.
Yeah.
Don't come out here; it's too dangerous. But we're driving down the road. So
it is going to be this upcoming weekend at the Alderbrook. There's coffee, hot chocolate, clam chowder, and of course we are raising money for the emergency workers, and other different community members are also raising money and jumping in, and it's just a fun event, and it's always a good time, and lots of music and.
Alderbrook does a great job for us putting that on.
They're real nice, all those folks out there. What else you got? Dan Gagnon is on your list here today?
Yeah, I heard you mention Dan Gagnon this morning and his team that he's coaching. I am probably sorry about this, Dan, but I actually had Dan for a coach and when I was in school. And I also had the opportunity, a great opportunity to watch Dan teach and then teach with him. I'll tell you, that is probably one of the finest classroom teachers you'll ever see anywhere. I wish they would not have allowed him to retire. He's that good. And when you see Dan coach, I don't care what sport that Dan's been involved in, he coaches winning teams. His teams are always in it, no matter what talent level he has. He's just such a motivating guy. But of all the people out there continuing to be involved with kids sports and do things, he's a tremendous motivator and what a great classroom teacher. I heard you mention him this morning, and his teams, he's always competitive no matter what sport he coaches. So
he's a good guy.
Congratulations to Dan and the group that he has going on.
Yeah, pretty good stuff. All right, Casey, good to see you.
Thanks so much.
We'll see you this weekend.